This one was in the book that we need to the fire department, it's a switch dates.
We have switched dates. Fire will be the 24th, police will be the 29th.
It's like Facebook, don't send it to that person.
Yeah.
Using the trees, storm.
No, I had one birch that half dead, but, no, I'm pretty good that one. But all my children, all underneath, all the stairs, it's all splendid when you walk there. Really? Now, near the water or in the woods?
Close 50 feet.
Yeah. I put my dog out yesterday.
Is it?
I did. I love it being out.
Cold?
No, I don't get wet. No,
Mm,
mine's on the wheel. It rolls downhill. I don't need more big enough. There's way, like, that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
A lot of them, though. We got a fox over in the nuts, we have deer, lots of deer. And, a moose and a big moose.
Okay, we are live.
Are you ready? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, so, I have a few things to say before we get underway. Let me start with, while you are on this committee, during the term of this budget committee, if you have questions regarding anything that is financial, do not file a freedom of access request for information. We will give you that information during the term of this budget committee. Mr. Dwelly didn't understand that, got himself in a different place than some of the rest of us, but I think we have it sorted away.
Just ask for information. I just told you for what perform.
Well, that is what normally happens with people coming in, and that is based on state law. However, for you people during the term of this committee, we are not enforcing that. So, now the group of you must select from among the group of you a chairperson.
I would nominate either Steve or George. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to miss one, possibly two, so that precludes me from being chair.
One can nominate one.
Well, I'm giving them a chance to run out of the room if they so choose.
Well, I would nominate George, primarily because I'll have a conflict when it comes to economic committee. And so, whether you want me to step out during that time or not, but, that's my recommendation.
Are there more nominations? So if that is the case, and we only have one nominee, would someone cast a ballot for that nominee?
I nominate George as the chair.
Second,
Cast a ballot for him.
All in favor?
There we are. Okay, so George Edwards is now the chair. Melissa would like to have one of you, if one of you feels able, to be effectively the secretary of this group. She tries to keep up through the meetings with what gets discussed, what gets proposed, what gets suggested, but there's a lot to do, and so she'd like to have someone sort of double check on her. If If none of you are willing to do that, then it won't happen. But if one of you is willing to do that, then you might volunteer to be that secretary of this group. Anyone?
Well, she's recording it, so I can do it.
I would say
Even though I'm not here,
I can send you the recording.
This
Yeah.
one.
or I can watch it,
Yeah.
so.
So we seem to have a volunteer. Is there a second volunteer? Seeing that there is only one candidate, I propose that the chair cast a ballot for that candidate, and there is the secretary.
Melissa, we're getting an echo.
Oh, I thought I turned that off.
So with that said, it is now time for the chair of this committee to go forward.
Let's do vice chair, just in case George isn't
Well, okay, we can
available.
do that. I'd like to nominate someone to be the vice chair.
Well, vice chair? Okay, I nominate Steve Perry.
Is there a second to that?
I second it.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, then we will have chair cast a single ballot for the one candidate. Done, okay. Yes,
Yes, and we
yes.
Okay.
Everybody can stand and raise your right hand. And I'll make it quicker, I'm just gonna read this. So I state your name, do swear that I will support, that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state, so long as you shall continue to be a citizen thereof, so help you God. Do you state your name? Do swear that you will faithfully discharge to the best of your abilities the duties incumbent on you as a member of the fiscal year 26 budget committee for the town of Lincoln according to the Constitution and laws of the state, so help you God. If you can just sign and print those oaths and get it back to me and Melissa, that would be great. Thank you.
Starting with town manager, finance budget. Start, just go line by line. If anyone has any questions, comments, discussion? No. Start with town manager wages.
George, I had Melissa put this together, I really appreciate you doing it. The two reports that you have before you, one of them is the report up to April, so this would be like the 3/4 year report of expenses to date. And then the other one she did, which is 100%, is the 23-24 report. I had her put this together because sometimes it's really, for me anyway, it's important to see, we put a budget together, but did we spend the money? And did we spend too much or not enough? And as far as moving forward with these budgets, I find it kind of helpful. I'd like to have this go back 5 years, but probably since a lot of years. But thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
So this is a tool that we have as we go down through this.
Start with the town manager wages.
Is there a contract agreement as far as what the wages are?
Yes, there is a contract that we renewed for another year at the last council meeting, and that is $125,000 to me. The other money is two things that we have no other place to pay for them, and they are wages. One is Bruce Arnold, who does very little for us, but he does do some things regarding small grants, regarding primarily fire, but occasionally police. And so we pay him an unknown amount through the course of a year, but we do pay him. And the other piece is Ed Barber, the part-time employee who works in part for Ruth in assessing and in part with us on the other side of the office in accounts receivable.
And you're referring to section 108, contractual services.
No, I am referring to wages 0001.
001.
You go to the town manager tab,
Mhm.
breaks it out. And just for clarification, the assessing clerk is a new ad.
That was new in this past year, yes.
You know the breakout for what Bruce gets versus the assessing?
Well, with Bruce, it's an hourly arrangement. There are weeks he does nothing, and then there are times that he does. So it's a bit of a poke in the dark as to where he lands.
Is the same with the assessing clerk, just as needed or?
It could be, but it isn't.
I think it was 12.5.
I
Yeah.
think that's about right.
He's split now between the two. He does 20 hours a week.
I see that a little differently.
Well, tell us.
I think I get that probably 25% of the time that he's in here, and the rest of the time he's doing other jobs for other departments. So it was my call to take the 25,000 council allocated for the assessor's clerk and only put in for half of it, because I'm not going to sit here in front of you and say that I had him for the full time, because I did not.
I guess my question would be, do you need him for the whole time or the half time or?
If you remember correctly, at the end of the budget hearing last year, it was recommended that you hire this clerk for 25,000. My recommendation was don't do it, because it was too far in the budget process and we hadn't had time to really describe what he was going to do, what his job requirements were going to be. Could I use him? I could use a full-time person, so could everybody else in here. But did we work out and iron out the different things that he could do? I think we have. And I think we're getting to a point where he's benefiting all the departments he's working for. But I'm not going to put in my budget that I have this person for the 25,000 for the full part-time hours that it was allocated when I don't. So that's why during a department manager's meeting discussion, Rick said we'll put part of it in my budget and part of it, because honestly, week to week, we don't know where Ed's going to be. It depends upon the most important need at the time. For instance, he started helping with the audits, and that was the most important need at the time. So I understand that. I just want to be honest with the representation I have in mind.
Isn't he an assessor too? Like he has,
He's not an assessor.
no, okay.
He's an insurance person.
Okay.
I'm not sure what type of insurance person he was,
Workers'
but
comp audit.
he was really technical, and he's an asset. He's an absolute asset. I mean, no question. He's an asset, but, you know, it would be, he is doing a lot of jobs for different departments that nobody else has the time to do. And he's been beneficial to everybody he's worked for. I think I'm representing that appropriately.
So I guess I do have a question on contractual services. That's not. What the contractual services?
Contractual services is primarily legal. Legal shows up in two places, one in economic development and one here. It's pretty difficult at the beginning of the year to predict what sorts of things will happen. But I can tell you right now, we're using legal fairly heavily. The contractor who began the bathhouse, and then we had to terminate and had to hire another contractor to finish it, is now suing us for not having made the last payment to him. I think we will do well regarding that. However, that takes legal representation. And when we were attempting to hire a police chief, we got to the point we had no candidates. We had a candidate who was at the University of Maine Police Department, who had been in Great Britain and had long and lengthy experience as a command officer in fire, but not in police. The council interviewed him and did not express great interest in hiring him, so we did not hire him. Then after that, he had a stroke, and he has now gone to the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, claiming that the reason we did not complete hiring him was because he had the stroke, and so therefore we are not accommodating his difficulties. We are represented by another attorney in that, and the attorney representing us at this time thinks we'll be okay, but we still have to pay the attorneys to go through these things. And we spend lots of legal money in economic development, but this is not that.
So far this year, you spent 44,000 up to 70. The year before that was 35, and it looks like you ran over that a little bit. So what you just explained spilled into this year.
It's what's going to happen in the year. These things I have mentioned to you will clearly still be going on after the first.
Any idea of any projections at all as far as how it's coming out?
Well, I can be a comedian and say less than $500,000. But we really just don't know. Both attorneys say they think our cases are good. That still doesn't get them to reduce their fees.
Outside of that situation, in the past, what has been legal fees charged to the town?
We have been, over the last few years, in the process of transitioning legal fees that have to do with economic development to economic development. They had once been here. This number has been all over the place and not particularly expressive of what we're actually doing.
For the economic development piece of the attorney's fees, do you put that in the grants or anything?
Some small pieces, Ruth could speak to that better.
If we can address that when we get to the economic development portion of
Yeah.
That will be when we go through the TIP budget, because that's part of the TIP budget.
Does anybody have any questions on any line item in the manager's budget? Questions?
I guess just, and maybe it's not outside this arena, but you mentioned that you had agreed with town council for 125. The 155 that you're proposing, has that been talked to with council, or does that need to be brought up at some point in time?
It's going to come up, it needs to come up during these budget hearings.
These budget hearings? Okay. I kind of thought that the wages were done directly with the council, not with us.
The wages with me, and no, you cannot discuss a particular individual. You pick a town employee by name and say, I think you're overpaying them or underpaying. Can't go there.
Right.
But as far as the two who are working for us that are within the wages line, if someone were to say, I think we should no longer employ Bruce Arnold to do anything for us, he's a compliance officer, I guess you could think that. I will debate it, but
So at this point, you feel like Bruce is a strong asset to the town as far as what he's doing?
Bruce has done terribly well with small grants to the fire department. He's also done well with some other small grants. Ruth and Steve Levesque deal with the big grants, but Bruce deals with the small ones, and he's really done very nicely.
He's probably brought in way more than we're paying him.
Oh, yes, well,
You're only using it as needed, so.
on an as-needed basis. There are weeks, sometimes multiple in a row, where he does nothing.
I don't have any other questions.
Any questions? Move on to the clerk budget. The whole thing, any questions on the clerk budget or clerk revenue?
It's your job description.
Part of it. So what I handed you was, it's actually a PowerPoint presentation, but it's just the slide portion of it. First page is just to kind of give you an idea of what the clerk and the tax collector really does. It's the history of it, kind of how long ago these two positions kind of became, and what was the hub of local government and where people come to. And my department is the town clerk and the tax collector. So the third page, what does the office of the town clerk and tax collector do? These are just a portion of what we do, but those are the main things that we do, which is also governed by state statute. So I just wanted everybody to understand that might not already understand that the clerks that I have working up front aren't just like cashiers or anything like that. We do a lot of things that are done by state statute that's required. Residents of our town don't necessarily have a choice on some of their things that they come to the town office to do. They can only go to the town office, they can't shop around. So it's important that we have highly qualified individuals, and if they don't come in with the tasks needed, to make sure that we get them the training that they need so that they do things accurately. We don't want somebody to be pulled over and then have their vehicle registration have incorrect information on it, because that doesn't sit well with people. That's kind of what that's for.
Mhm. The dog registration, was that set up so that the fee for dog registration was to offset the cost of the registration itself, or was there anticipation that there'd be a burden to the town on that?
We get a portion of each of the registrations. We don't get a big portion, but we do get some, which, is that in the building part?
Yeah,
I think we filled a little
dog
bit.
registrations get split between police, clerk, and the state.
From the state?
Yeah, the state gets a portion of each licensed dog.
So we get some, but we don't, that's, it depends on how it's broken up. If
Mhm.
it's a spayed or neuter dog, we get a little bit of a less portion. Of course, it only costs $6 to register that dog. The $11 dogs, we get a little bit more of a portion.
Mhm.
Are those fees all mandated by the state, or do you guys decide?
No, it's mandated by state.
And when the money goes to the police, does that offset the animal control person? Is that where that money goes?
It's an ACO account. Yeah.
It's not a success at offsetting.
No,
No.
I wouldn't think so.
So on the revenue side, you're anticipating that you're gonna get additional revenues this year.
So as far as the revenues, I haven't updated all of the numbers yet. The last 3 weeks, one of the three of us that discussed the revenues has not been available certain points. We will be getting you those before we're finished this. I think Ann wants to update a few of her revenue amounts. I usually set with Ruth and Tracy. We'll go over things with her too, because she's the tax collector, just to make sure before it actually gets to the council that we're as good as we can get on those.
So Trio doesn't capture the revenues?
It
That
does,
they come in?
but I just haven't had a chance to sit and increase or decrease any of the revenues for this year. Because we need to go in and estimate. It's all an estimation, every single one of these revenues. Usually, we don't have to increase or decrease them very much.
Well, I can tell you one thing on mine, disposition of human remains. We had estimated that we would collect $27,000 or $2,700. And if everybody hasn't already heard, all the issues going on with Lamson, one of the issues with Lamson was he was not paying the town for his disposition permits as my sub-registrar. So that number, we have collected, anything that we have collected this year in disposition of permits, was probably most likely from funeral homes not in Lincoln, that were actually doing what they were required by statute to do. So that number there, 2,700, I know we haven't made that this year.
Does it go to the new owners, or does that?
So, well, I don't know what happened in court. I don't know how that played out, whether he will pay back the town.
I think he's ordered to pay it back. The question is for what actually happened.
Right. So I do know going forward, Tony Bowers, who bought Lamson, he's gotten so busy that he couldn't put all his time into Lincoln. So he has recently hired a quote manager of the Lincoln facility who is the actual practitioner. And I've had a conversation with him. He is trying to go in the direction where we want him to go. He's trying to do it right. So we've talked about this. He's fully aware that he owes that to the town if he's going to be my sub-registrar. Now it's just waiting for them to actually get organized enough to make that all happen. But I am very confident that that will happen. So.
Overall, regarding revenues, Melissa, do you not wish to wait until we are done with the expenditure lines?
Yes.
Another question is on the town report, so bring 50 of them, all of them, or?
Yeah, I think we have a few left this year, but generally they're usually all gone because they'll bring up to the November election and generally they all go there.
We debate between each other annually as to how many we'll print, trying to hold down the cost and print enough to cover the warrant. So we debate that.
Everything?
So,
George, I do have a capital, I have two capital lines.
Oh, that's, yeah.
We're done with that. Yeah, and in that PowerPoint, the last couple of pages, I have a capital for voting equipment. My 5-year plan, basically on a presidential year, I'd probably ask for $4,000 to $5,000, depending on what was going on. This year, I'm only asking for $1,000 in that capital line. We have aging and outdated supplies that I'm trying to replace as I can. And like I say, last year, we did quite a bit last year because of the presidential. So we probably need fewer things this year, but I'm just trying to get ahead of the game and not get behind so that in 1 year,
I find we need to replace everything and we don't have the money to do so. And my records restoration line, if you look at the second to last page of that handout that I did, it gives you some before and after photos of what some of our records in the vault look like. And those are the 3 pictures across the top. The 3 pictures across the bottom are what they look like when they come back. Everything is redone. They go through a protection process where every piece of paper front and back's treated. They're put into some sort of an acid-free, some sort of a sleeve. There won't be bound books anymore. Well, I don't know. I should take that back. I think they are going to rebind the older books, like you see in the top 2 left, middle and right photos. But they come back in much better condition and they're treated. Right now, none of these books that we have that are old are treated. So every time we touch them with our hands, you risk damage to those records, which are records that we have to keep forever. There's no such thing as getting rid of them. So, and I think this year, 6,000. I think that's the same as I did last year as well.
Mhm.
And 6,000 enough, that's
Well,
worse where.
I think 6,000 for this year is good. I might be a little bit off. There's a new person that took over our area, and the next time she's up in this area, I've asked her to come and look at our vault one more time. They've redone their structuring of their pricing, and they've moved their lab from Vermont to North Carolina. So she's going to come in and take a peek. When she does that, I'll have a better idea of how far off the original list from the previous salesperson might be.
You know, when the entire budget process.
I probably won't see it. We all done with it before she can come. That's what I'll look at it next year. Usually I can get about 2 books done for 6,000, but some of the other books now are getting to be, they're older books and they're in worse shape. So I'm assuming they're going to cost me more money.
How many books do you know?
I don't know. When I first started, I had 2 almost 3-page lists, and I'm down to 1 page. So we're getting there.
And even though this company moved into North Carolina, this is still your best place to go?
Yes. They are also one of the few companies that once I send my book and I don't have it here in my person, I can call a 1-800 number. So if somebody's requesting a record that's in that book, they will help me immediately. Not many companies will do that. And my books are gone for close to 12 weeks probably for that process.
Digital aspect of it.
That's even more of an expense above that. Yeah. It's something that I will probably look into at some point, but it's
the ambulance lease, is that something new?
was that up?
Ambulance lease?
Oh, you want to cover that's not mine.
That's not hers. That'll come up later on.
Yeah, I just have those 2 lines.
Okay.
I mean, for something for the council, about that, you're getting pricing for books and preventive records. So
I was gonna say digital is cheaper than restoration because like you said, there's a lot of physical, special coding, value, the digital.
Most of the time when, at least as far as I know, and I haven't done a lot of research into it yet, from anything I've understood, when they do that, they do it in conjunction with them restoring a book. So I haven't I can't guarantee that they would do a digital without doing the book itself. So I'd have to look into that further just to see if they would do digital and not restore the book.
I don't know anything about it, but my first impression was the first thing they do is digital. keeping the hard copy from the digital. That's what it is. So I just thought naturally the digital would be a cheaper aspect versus maybe the physical special paper coded.
Right.
This one's more expensive.
From what I know, it's been more expensive. Because they're giving it to you with, and I've never actually seen a digital one done. But from my understanding, they give you like an index. It's almost like a microfiche, but not a microfiche. So they put a lot of work into it like they do a book, but I'd have to look into it further to really know how that's gonna work.
But once you do digital, you have to transfer it so you can do it.
Right.
And the technology of the book doesn't change. So you'll always have your book.
Because that is one thing, once you start going digital.
By law, do we have to have a call?
No, I'm just saying, if you have a book, short of burning it, you're always gonna have that book, whereas when it's a digital process, the digital processes could change and you're constantly having to change it to another digital form.
Right, because by law, because by law, if it changes and you don't have whatever machine you need to run that, you have to, by law, you have to change to whatever the newest is. So,
Critical records, they'll take one. Hard copy.
yeah,
You have to have.
most clerks that I know of have both. If they go digital, they're still keeping their hard copy. Yeah.
Keep the original hard copy or do that.
That's what I have to find out. I'm not exactly sure.
Because actually, if you have a fire, unless you got a fireproof wall.
Which they do.
We have a fire resistant bulb.
Nothing's fireproof, right, Rick?
Right, there's nothing fireproof in the world.
Cloud, so.
I don't know if you're allowed to put it on the cloud where it's personal information.
That's with all our information, personal.
Right, but when it comes to what DHHS allows us to do, I don't know if that's an allowable by state statute, if that's something that's allowable to be on the cloud. So like I say, I have research to do on that. I haven't done a lot of that yet for that.
Yeah, banks, for example, then all that's on the cloud. It's all personal. You have certain protocols, access that information.
Right.
It's
I think that's something to look at. If there's a fire, you lost all the hard copies, and kind of liability of the town. I imagine that.
Well, everything's still, everything that I have here isn't necessarily the original. The state actually has the originals.
Or if the law look up records on veterans, later than 1962.
Any other questions on the town clerk? Or town clerk, Jacqueline? Well, then we're going to assessment. Anybody have any discussion on the items?
We've already talked about the wages and why it's cut in half.
Mhm.
Pretty straightforward.
I do have one capital.
Okay.
They have in here the new assessing revaluation, where last year they put 50,000 aside for that. That represents probably, I'm estimating that it's gonna be between $400,000 and $500,000, and the start would probably be close to 2028. So you do keep in mind that if you put aside 50,000 a year, for the next few years, you're gonna have a big expense when they actually start the work. So you might wanna put a little more. That's just an opinion.
So you're not believing that you can do the reevaluation until 2028?
I believe to go out to bid, we get in the docket and it would be starting 27, but you're not gonna have it finished until 28.
How many bids do you anticipate getting?
I think I'll be lucky if I get 3, because right now every town in the state of Maine is requesting revaluations and they're stretched thin. Of course, you could get a company, but there are companies out there that there's been problems with their revaluation, so I'd probably shy away from those.
We haven't gone up bid or anything.
I'm going to have figures for, the bids will be back, and I'll have figures for the town council to consider and a contractor to consider if they want to move forward with it for the public hearings for the budget in June.
Okay.
Have you issued an RFP at this point, or are you in the process?
I have a 45-page request for proposals that I'm trying to whittle down, and it will go out this week.
Is this an RFP that other towns have used? or-
Yes, yes, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I asked for help from other assessors and used their format.
Mhm.
I just need to hone it down a little bit so it's more Lincoln specific.
See what the towns, do they have to put in like, they sign a contract, and stuff like that, so they have to put a certain amount down to hold their spot.
Some yes, some no.
Okay.
Some yes, some no. It depends upon who you hire. It depends upon who you get.
And so the ones that are doing it, is it, that they seem to do at the beginning or at the end of that? Or?
They have a payment plan where you pay so much up front, then you pay so much halfway, and then you pay the balance at the end. So they can pay their contractors. And I do know that the towns that are having revaluations done are reporting some really bad situations. Lewiston has gone from house to house inspection because they were basically, the inspectors were getting accosted. And it was really bad. So they're sending out like a written thing, you supply us with the information and we'll take a photo from the outside, because it was so hostile. It's not a good time to be an assessor. It just isn't. You know, I'd like to say that it is, but it's just, the market is so inconsistent and it's so volatile. And then you're doing a revaluation right in the middle of it. So you have the people who have had their home forever to say, you know, this is outrageous. My home isn't worth this much money. But then you've got all the data that shows that, as a matter of fact, it is. So it's a very hostile environment out there. Plus the fact people are, you know, they're affording less and less all the time, you know, because everything's going up.
Mhm.
So it's not a good time to be an assessor.
The thing is, a big market, then there's very few people doing it, and there's a high demand for it. You think to become.
Nobody wants to go into it. Nobody wants to be an assessor. Nobody wants to take that type of physical, mental abuse from the public. We have,
Verbal abuse.
mental abuse, verbal abuse, hostility, nastiness. Yeah, it's all there. It's all there. I've got a letter on my desk, 2 pages worth, that I could show you, that I got today. And it's just the nature of things out there. You know, it's just how, you know, I've worked here for 33 years. I have never seen the hostility I see in some people coming through the door. You know, it used to be you could, you know, say, you need to calm down, we'll have a conversation, it will be good. But sometimes now, well, how many people have we non-trespassed the town office to? That never happened when I started out here. That never would occur. You know, it's just that frustration, you know, and the fact that, you know, people, I think most people, when they come in the door, they think that, you know, you're doing something to hurt them. You're doing this intentional. It's biased. And you don't have you know, a rational methodology about how you're approaching it. And they think that, you know, this is a personal attack against them, you raising their taxes and getting, you know, to the point where they're going to have to leave their homes. So, and even when you tell them about the programs out there, they'll fire right back at you, you know, well, I don't file my taxes. I don't do this. I'm not going to do this. So it's like, it's just the nature of things. So no, people are not going into assessing. We've had far less people going for the tests than we've ever had. And most of the assessors right now in the state of Maine are right around my age and planning on retirement. So I don't know what's going to happen.
What is the procedure, Ruth? Like, you do a building permit, is that followed up on like in a year or 2 years, or?
Well, it depends. I
Is it
mean,
given?
you go out and you see if it's done. If it's not done, then you put a thing to go out and look at it again.
Mhm.
And during COVID, that was really, really hard because, you know, you couldn't go in the houses.
Right.
And to be perfectly frank, there was a time where we had some of the building permits did not get to me like they should have. And it wasn't because of Wade and it wasn't because of Amanda, but they just didn't get to me. So we discovered, Amanda and I discovered a whole pile of building permits I didn't even know existed that hadn't been picked up. So, and I happen to know these rural areas, you know, out in the woods where they've had all these new subdivisions. You drive down a road with a subdivision map and say it's this lot, this lot, this lot. And out of 5 lots, 3 lots have cabins, the others don't. And you're trying to make sure you're on the right lot. Sometimes I'm not on the right lot, so I have to abate it and then supplement it to the person that it really belongs to.
Are we still using Sewell on the mapping?
No, we use CAI mapping. Sewell does not do mapping anymore. CAI is doing the mapping. And we're this close to getting that project that was way behind up to date. They sent me the draft maps today. I got them. I'm going to look through them and see if they've got all the changes. And hopefully, I'm hoping to put it out in May that the maps are going online, updated, and check your lot because there's a lot of property in Lincoln. I'm sure I'm going to miss something. So I'm going to ask the public to help me make sure that that's done. So moving forward, it's up to date all the time. But, you know, I'd like to say that this is not my fault, but it is. It's my fault because, you know, transitioning to economic development and hiring somebody to do assessing, and then all the changes we have in here, these larger projects get sort of behind because you're dealing with the priority of the day. So we're there. We found out with E911 recently, because I'm also the addressing agent for the town of Lincoln. So all new addresses and all new roads and everything else go on an online OGIS system. And that way, if that goes into dispatch into Penobscot County, Stacy was helping me with that. And we found out that because we didn't have fiber, when she was entering in changes and I entered in changes, we had addresses in the lakes. They were just going all over the place because it wasn't communicating properly. Well, we got fiber, that's been corrected, but what I didn't know until the fire station brought it to my appointment is the coordinator I had at OGIS said, well, if all these changes are all over the place, they're not accurate, so I'm deleting them all. So I deleted them all and deleted probably a good 60% of the new roads we had because of the subdivisions and everything else. So I had to spend a week just re-entering information I'd already put in it, but I've checked it, it's there, it's accurate, and finally we're up to date on that. So that's another project that I had, but at least we're up to date on that. So
So the maps are gonna be up to date, we're just gonna push the.
the tax maps, yes, yes, they will be. Yep, yep, that was the plan. And see, now with the contract we have through CAI, when I get, for instance, a subdivision and the lot starts selling, I just download the deed and they plot them immediately. So we're never gonna have this lag again. Because usually, you know, the contract we had before, I'd send in all the changes, they'd do it once a year. We'll have ongoing, continually updating the maps moving forward, which will be great.
I looked online just trying to satisfy my curiosity. It seems like 4 to 8 years back, places some I was involved in, just looking to see where they were on taxes. There's a fair amount of them that are just paying for a lot, like $600 or $800, and some of them are like $300,000-$400,000 places. I just wonder how they get through the loophole. They just get missed, or
Just like I said,
yeah.
I had one on Long Pond that tore down a cabin and rebuilt it. And somebody came in and said, "Why is this person?" I said, "I didn't know." And then there was no building permit, there was no nothing. I can't do anything about that if I don't get the information. I cannot possibly, with the amount of work I do here, I cannot possibly cruise every single road, every single remote area to make sure I'm getting every single solitary
Yes, that
property.
was the point. Is I think we're missing a lot of tax money. We're probably not going to
Which is
see that
why-
until 2028.
Which is why I recommended the reval, because that's what you need. You need a crew of people that go through all at once,
Everything.
pick everything up. And then moving forward, you can keep up with it. But the market changed so much during COVID. For instance, on average, for 30 plus years, I probably had 12 new dwellings, you know, a lot of garages, a lot of sheds, but pretty much that's the building permits I had. You know, maybe 2 mobile homes, 5 seasonal cottages, easy to keep up with that, you know? Decks, sheds, pretty easy stuff to pick up. You drive by, you see it, it's there, you're good. And I probably had maybe on average 10 to 20 lot changes, you know, like where they added a piece or they got a new lot in a subdivision or something. The first year of COVID, I had 75 new lots on the books, 75. And as soon as those lots went up for sale, they were sold. They needed new addresses, they needed new map and lots, they needed permits were going out quicker than they could. The volume was incredible. I thought on my computer on Trio, you can track what you do for changes. Prior to COVID, I did about 4,500 changes a year on the assessing side. Now I'm doing about 20,000 a year. It's a lot of upkeep and a lot of changes.
So if I heard correctly, you have places that build building permits? How does that?
Yep.
Wouldn't that be condemned and forced to keep going down?
No. No, the thing is if I find a structure that doesn't have a permit, then the standard course of action in our ordinance is to charge them a double permit fee once you find it.
That's it.
That's it. And if the code enforcement officer goes through it afterwards and he won't issue him a certificate of occupancy. That's.
real.
Mhm.
It would be nice to know what we're losing on tax money versus what it would cost to move up.
I think you'll find that everybody would be more equitable, and I think you'd probably find that you get enough taxes to pay probably a good portion of what it costs to do the reval.
So, 2 things, have any towns around locally, been reassessed
Yes,
I think Lowell's.
Laurel's going through it now, Enfield went through it. Burlington's gone through it.
And the people.
Wynn is in process of doing, Mattawamkeag did it. Chester did it.
So
Yeah.
it's smaller than us. So, have you heard good things about the companies they work with or no? And, do we really need to wait to 28 or can we do it in 27?
It depends on what I get for bids. If I can get it done sooner, I'll get it done sooner. But I'm just talking the reputable firms, the ones I've talked to, they said that they're booked out till then.
I also. think
And
it's
I-
critical. I mean, knowing where I.
And I know these towns have had issues. I know these towns have had issues because when they have issues, if you're a property owner and you can't get answers in your town, what are you gonna do?
Oh, no, that's fine.
You're gonna go into another town and ask them.
Right.
So that's how I know.
Well, that's good though, because then that eliminates companies you don't want to do it. So that, eliminates one mistake.
Some of the ones that I found, I know we're losing $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year.
Well, it would be
So-
nice, Charlie, if you found those, if you
Well, I'm
let me
not
know
gonna
where
rat
they.
on people as my friend. I'm saying it wouldn't take very many of them to make up what it would cost to maybe move it up.
Well, and I think I think they're out there. I also know that there are properties that are gated, that have I have no access to. That's the other thing.
How does that work? Like, if you go to a house and want to assess it, and they won't let you inside,
I can assess it any way I want and they have no right of appeal.
so you do maximum, yes.
I don't, I'm not that brutal.
Yeah.
I'll look at it from the outside and go to houses that are similar and kind of do an assessment like that and maybe add 20%. And usually that added 20% will get the call to me that will say, it's not worth it, then let me in. And until you let me in, you have no right of appeal. So as soon as I say that, pretty much I get it.
Could you use a drone?
I could. They're doing that in Canada, actually, right now. They're doing their assessments by a drone.
That webinar last week talked about that.
Yeah,
But hopefully, to get some that had missed. Work there wasn't the one building permit, or maybe they did, but can we go back and retroactively and,
So the negative reports you're hearing from the other towns that are getting it done, what are they doing that's not satisfactory?
they're not responding to the taxpayers when they send out the valuation notices. Technically, how a revaluation works is that you go out and you visit all the properties, you list them. And in the meantime, you look at all the sales that have happened like over a 4 or 5 year period, and you develop a formula and you plug that formula into like houses with like components, et cetera. And then you do the same for the land. And you do that, based upon location, because obviously waterfront property is going to be different than like downtown Lincoln property. And even different parts of Lincoln have different markets. For instance, you'll pay more for a house on the Finney Farm Road than you will Outer Main Street. It's just a more desirable area, and the sales show that because they pay a higher price out there. So they'll get all of those marketing areas. They'll take my data that shows where the different markets are in town, and once they get that done, then they go through and they put the sketches down and all the components of the house and they apply it. Once they do that, then they send out a notice to the people, this is your new assessment. This is what we have. You have the ability to make an appointment and come in and talk to the assessors on how they arrived at that. And if there's something we listed incorrectly, you get the opportunity to say, no, I don't have 2.5 baths. I have 2 bathrooms, that sort of thing. After that's done, then the final assessments are set and then the tax bills go out. The biggest issue I have heard is that once the values go out, they go and they ask their questions and they talk to the revaluation companies doing it, and they just won't give them any answers. They won't respond to any of the requests. And frustration, I know of people that have gone to the county commissioners in Mattawamkeag, Enfield, Burlington.
So the assessors are not responding, that's the negative side of what you're hearing.
They're not responding to taxpayers' questions.
And that leaves the town,
That leaves the residents frustrated that they didn't get a fair review. That's what it does. And if they can't sit down with that assessor and that assessor say, okay, you're in this neighborhood, this is the data we use, this is what we use for comparisons, and this is different because, as you can see, this is a different market because it abuts the lake and everything else, they should be able to tell people that they can't. They can't.
those models are all set up.
I think I know the answer to my next question is, but you're doing economic development too. Is this too much with the assessing to possibly keep up? I mean, is that a factor?
Do you want an honest answer?
I think I know what it is. I think he was busy before and now, and I don't know what the answer to it is, but. Is it
Yes.
something the part-time person or they're confined to the office? I mean,
I don't think he's confined to the office, but I don't know that he has any expertise in this area.
right?
The part-time person originally when the council, now, I'm going from memory, John, so if I state this wrong, jump in. Okay, so it was my understanding that there was concern about me having too much work to do. So it was thought that they would set aside this $25,000 to hire me an assistant, and the role of the assistant would be to work with me to learn assessing so they could eventually take their test, and when I retire, they could move into the position and take it over. That was my understanding. The gentleman that we've hired is retired. And he's he is doing this because he likes to stay busy, and he has the knowledge and the capability where he's helped me follow up on tree growth, he's helped me follow up on exemptions, he's helped me follow up on, as far as not having Ed, I wouldn't have had the time to do that. So he is helping, but he would never get to the point where he would learn the assessing and eventually walk into that job. Lincoln is a very big area and a very diverse market. There's a lot of different influences on value to the locations around the town.
If you get your street maps updated, that's what we're trying to do. Would it be worth it to give somebody a part-time job to ride every street in town? I know they couldn't assess, but they could look at that map that showed an empty lot and make a note and give you a list of places where they are. So,
Wade and I have actually started doing that. Was it last fall you and I went out? Yeah, we went, if he and I go out together, like a couple times a month, we picked up an enormous amount of activity by doing that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, we just got to make the effort to do it.
I'm just wondering if there's some way to get them on the books before the assessment.
Yeah, were you able to add them to the rolls, what you found?
Yes. And I have the whole month of May to go out riding roads and see that. So when I'm not doing economic development.
How many residents, actually businesses too, do you have in the town?
I can give you approximate numbers. We have about 1,600, what I would refer to as non-waterfront residentials, and we probably have 800 to 900 waterfront residences. Mhm.
2,500, something like that?
Yeah,
The population, Lincoln is 5,000.
4,800.
I see.
But the waterfront includes seasonal, so you're gonna have your residents that come in the summertime. So your population's not gonna be really reflective of, but.
Population is a snapshot on April 1st annually. And that's all it is. So when we have people who are here in the summer, they are not counted in that. And I strongly believe that we have more or less 5,000 on a year-round basis, and probably something like 7,000 in this.
Businesses, we have about 200 and 200 plus in town. And that's the next thing that I'm gonna have Ed help me on, because there's some businesses that aren't paying business equipment tax. So we're gonna go through and audit that and make sure we have all of them.
Property value, I think last report I saw was somewhere around $450 million.
Yes.
So before you became economic development assistant, whatever the title is, was your assessing job full-time?
Yes,
So you were full-time assessor and then you started getting on the.
but I've also done other things over time.
Right.
Keep in mind that when I was assessor, I was also code supervisor. I was also in charge of converting, doing the E911 conversion. I was also the one that took us from paper maps to GIS systems. I mean, I've had multiple hats since I've been here. I've never just worked assessing, never just. I only did for the first 2 years I was here. And then apparently other departments needed help.
Let me know if I'm out of bounds, but you're gonna retire, maybe.
I am retiring March 29th, not 2028.
2028.
Yes,
Yeah, that's 3 years ago.
yeah, yes. I'll be 70. I'm not working beyond 70.
So that's probably a message we need to get to town council, right?
Why are you looking at me like that?
So it's fairly early in this budgeting game, but I suggest we just make a note on this assessing reevaluation money that's tucked away.
Mhm.
When we get to the end, if we're not all horrified with the numbers, we should consider raising this $50,000 because we're gonna have to pay that FIPA in 2027, 2028. And this is less than 25%
I would,
of what's gonna be needed.
right,
It's not enough.
I would like to say that up until COVID, even working all the hats I did and everything else, I kept up with the job. And it was COVID that threw this into a tailspin. The increase in the activity in the market and the crazy selling prices and my house is up for an hour and I've sold it. And, it was really that put the whole state in a tailspin, and we're trying to recover from that. And I really feel that once we have a revaluation done, the person coming behind me will be able to keep up with it very easily, because I do think that there'll be a leveling out. But Lincoln's a very, very busy town. I don't know if who was present at the meeting where we had the guy from Revenue Services in here, but he kept saying through that presentation, there's a lot of sales in Lincoln. There's a lot of activity in Lincoln. And it's true, because Lincoln usually has when we do our sales ratio return, which is basically reports all the sales and what I have them assessed at compared to their selling prices. That's how I get my quality rating. We have an abundance of sales here. We're like second to Bangor in activity here. So it's a very busy, busy place. But before COVID, I kept up.
Is there any way we could raise the fine per se if somebody builds without the permit, just to try to discourage it?
That's a weird question.
Sorry, Lee.
As part of an assessor, if I go out and see a building that doesn't have a building permit and I list it and I assess it, I'll bring it back to Wade and say there's a building out there without a building permit. Pretty much, other than following up and doing double the permit, that's all we have right now. It would have to be a code. It would have to be a change in the code.
And then that's gonna fall along the line if they've sold the house in between that was a past resident. that had it. So when I come in, I can go through all the spreadsheets and everything. I don't know what was permitted before. Maybe
Pretty hard to
it would
know.
have actually been assessed.
Yeah, I can tell you that there's one right now. There's a big property out on Caribou Pond that very thing happened. They built the house, no permits were issued for anything. I'm talking plumbing, septic, anything. And that was our first $500,000 sale in the town of Lincoln.
They had no permits for what they had built.
And when the real estate appraiser came out to appraise the property, they didn't ask if they had legitimate permits. They just looked at the house, appraised it, sent it to the bank, they financed it, and went on from there.
Did it line up with all the zoning and everything?
It did. It did.
I guess the question would be, did line up with the zoning? Curiosity.
Then Wade would issue a corrective action notice of violation. You need to bring this up to code.
Then it's another, I don't know, situation.
Is that something your license have to do now, Wade, or is that something like Bruce's, where he was licensed up, something he would pursue?
No, Wade has the same ability to follow up on a code violation that Bruce did. Bruce didn't have a special license to do that.
Okay. But it was-
That's, you're talking Rule 80K. Bruce was not Rule 80K certified.
Okay.
And I would recommend,
Representing court?
yeah,
Is that, yeah. No,
Yeah.
Nobody is in this.
no,
And the state's not,
They did away with
Training
it, but I think
anymore.
they're trying. to come back.
That's nice, yeah.
so nobody can get certified
Right.
now.
when I was code trainer for the town of Lincoln, I recommended every code officer not do that. You want to set yourself up for a disaster. Go in and try to act like an attorney when you're prosecuting somebody for doing something wrong. It was better if we had junkyard violations and things like that to show the process of notification, hand it to the attorney and let the attorney go. Because they have the knowledge of the legal jargon. We don't. And you can't take a course that lasts 24 hours and you take an hour and a half long test and think that you're going to go in there with any competence and do that. Again, I'm editorializing a little bit.
So you're still thinking that the total appraisal is going to be somewhere around $500,000?
I do. Just
And that's
because,
based on talking to the local power.
yeah, and that's just because of the size of Lincoln. You can remember that not only is Lincoln got a lot of properties, it's got a lot of area. So they're going to have to hire field people to cover different areas in order to get it done in a timely manner. So I think with staffing and stuff in the territory they're covering, yes, most definitely, from what I've talked to other towns that have had this done. See, unlike East Millinocket and Millinocket, and they're very consolidated. Like, I think Millinocket's like 11 square miles. We're 75 square miles. You know, so, yeah. No, so, you know, those smaller communities are, you know,
Well, Enfield would be similar, except it's not as large, but they have a lot of lake properties on the coast stream and stuff, so. Have you talked to them as far as the good and the bad side and stuff they're experiencing?
yes. Yes, I actually have a personal friend that has waterfront on Cold Stream Line. I've heard from her often. I've heard from her a lot.
I took, you said between 400,000 and 500,000, so I put 400,000 on the low end. 50,000 is already bang. We need to put $160,000 away for the next 3 years in order to just get the whole end. And we move it at least temporarily right now in the process, at least 100,000. And then the council, you get this back, they can readjust that base. They see the meter for favors by give all
No.
50,000 for
No.
I would like to say one more thing. If you think I have too much to do, I'm not the only one in this office.
I know.
There isn't one person in this office that doesn't do multiple things.
I knew the answer to the question. I was just trying to bring it out to see if there is an answer that would
Well,
work.
thanks for making me the victim.
I did it to your face.
So you anticipate it would take probably a year for them to do the assessment?
I think it's gonna take them between a year to more closer to 2 years, once they get out and about.
Okay, so you're going from, say, 28 to 2030 for the assessment. And then
I'm hoping it's
probably
more
another
like
year
starting in
starts
27, finishing in 29, yeah.
Or you're gonna start in 27, not 28.
Yeah.
I wrote down 28.
Well, I think 28 is the full year they'll do, and I think they'll do like a half a year in 27 and half a year in 29.
And then as far as follow-up, like you mentioned, as far as property owners wanting to question them, is that gonna be a period of time beyond that?
No, that's part of the contract.
That's part of the contract.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I recommend in your RFP is to make sure that you retain enough money so that they do follow up. And what, if you pay them 100% right up front,
Oh, we're not
then
doing
you're
that.
gonna have a problem on the tail end. So
No,
you need to have a certain amount of retainer, I'd say about 25% retainer on the tail end.
that's in the contract already.
That's us.
And the assessors that already bid it out did it for that reason.
So would there be any objection to raising it to 50 to 100,000 for
Nope.
capital?
I think it makes sense.
And then again, that's more. Raise it or?
50 is not near enough.
Any other questions on assessment?
Is that the one you're gonna cover as far as capital?
That's the only one I have in here.
Yeah.
The other stuff, for instance, like, and I do want to make it clear that my salary is in the TIP budget as the Economic Development Administrator. So my salary is not in here, but I do get paid.
Really?
Yeah, I think that was a question last year. It's like, where's Ruth's salary? Oh, it's here.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
All right, one question. Be the quickest one, yes.
I have seen department side.
Big link.
Yeah, the landfill's really quick.
Department.
Mhm.
Landfill department.
The budgetary. part.
Look right here, sir.
Just can't find the staff.
I'm trying to,
Does anyone have any questions?
I got a quick one for you, Wade. I'm seeing on the news where the state is gonna, towns over 4,000 population, I believe they said, are gonna have to do a more thorough inspection of house building for as insulation.
yeah, they're changing the insulation code.
Is that gonna affect your budget? I mean, it sounds like a lot more work to do. Are we gonna do that?
No, it's not gonna change my work. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna see what they have for insulation. They're just adding our value to the ceilings, which is, I'm not sure how they can put more than an R49 in the ceiling, so. To me, what the state's doing is going backwards. They're gonna create more mold issues and stuff. But that's just my opinion.
It sounds like it's a whole elaborate thing.
Yep.
It's all the material.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna change. No, I go take a look, assess it.
So have you had a chance to ride around the ponds and stuff and see what's out there since COVID?
Yeah, but I don't know what was built
So you
before
don't really
me.
know, okay?
No, that's, if she doesn't have it for taxes, I don't know. I don't know on my standpoint of what was permitted prior to me and what wasn't.
Right.
I can tell you where new development is taking place now and anything, but
Since you've been,
before that, that's on, to me, it would be the assessor to
Wait,
assess.
you use Google Earth at all?
Yep, all the time.
I guess it's a good access.
It is, but I mean, and that goes back on our system where it's not updated. It's,
Right.
hard to pinpoint lots. So I have a lot of people that come in and want to look at their lot and stuff, and it's not updated, so.
But as far as Lincoln's concerned, we are productive.
Yes, yeah,
You may not see a completely built house, but you'll see what trees go back.
you can see where there's, absolutely, you can see where there's development, either a pad or, Yep. yep, absolutely. Yeah, and we do have the rights. If there is a gate, we can go beyond the gate to take a look. If we feel, yeah, yeah. But as far as, as code and assessing, if there is a gate up and we feel that there's violations of any sort, we have the authority to go onto that property.
Police officer,
I haven't yet, but I've walked right by the gates, smiled at the cameras. That way they know I have my badge and I'll show them my badge, so.
Let's say, just one building permits and things that weren't permitted, for how much the building permit costs.
It all depends on how much you're putting into it. So $100,000, a permit that someone's putting a base value of $100,000 on it, it's gonna be a $250 permit. Anything over that, it's $2 per thousand. So it goes in increments from there.
So essentially, there's no real, so they don't permit it, then there's no real gratification. $500, but double the permit, like, what would be the amount? Could the town, is there a maximum you can charge?
The max for a permit is $15,000. That's for large, obviously like large industrial.
But you could just said something with $15,000.
No, no. I have threatened a couple plumbers for not pulling permits, and by rights, I can actually get their license revoked. So they're very good about pulling permits now. A couple of them.
What about people that backfill, wetlands and stuff like that, they don't get a permit, and then they try to get permitted afterwards, when they want to build their building on it, there's still nothing, they just get charged double the permit price and that's it?
With wetland,
Yeah,
that would be
that-
DEP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a different issue.
Right. And if you're referring to out on Folsom Pond,
No, different water property. But someone
Yeah.
told me that he told me he did this, and then he was going to build his house, and now he's got caught, and I'm like, because it's my understanding, a lot of places, they can make you tear the house down if you do it without permits and the coordinate off it. And I
Yep.
said, you be careful, they might have been nice and let you pass the first time, but you could end up losing the whole thing.
you can. I mean, you're going to go to court, you're going to go through the whole process to make that happen.
Yeah, I think that does come down to, what's the town want to spend
Exactly.
$50,000 on various fees, so there's something.
Right, but if you know this is happening, why would we do a building permit if no one else is buying it? Just saying,
Yeah.
So you do have a professional development, the 3,200. Is that just like to maintain a certain permit or?
So that's testing. So I have to do training courses, keeping up on my credentials. So that way I don't have to retake all the tests because
Right,
the testing is not the most pleasant.
right.
So there's courses with MMA, with the state, and then also with plumbing. So during the wintertime, late fall, winter, spring is when I take my courses and training. But some of those trainings are $150 to $200. Some are free. I try to get on as many free ones as possible because free is better. It doesn't cost us anything, but I've kept that same line item. I haven't gone over that, to my knowledge, since I've been here, but it's always been there just in case we have to have it for the training. If there's books, if there's, anything that I'm gonna need.
So you really don't spend 3,200 a year for professional development?
Last year, was just a little over 3,000.
Close.
Yeah.
Yep.
The revenue side of this, Melissa, so assuming that based on the numbers I'm seeing, those are just best guess at this point.
Yeah, we don't know what people are gonna build, we don't know, you know, what permits people are gonna pull.
Yeah.
Like I said, I usually will sit down with departments and kind of make sure they look, you know, right for what they,
Reasonable.
yes.
Are you seeing a decline, Wade, anticipating a decline based on? what you're
Well,
seeing?
I'll have more permits this year than I did last year. I've seen it progressively going up a little bit. I was well over half my mark by December. Obviously from July to December, I was well over half the permits that I had issued the previous year. I keep a spreadsheet for each plumbing, electrical, everything, so it's easy for me to track and everything. And I thought I was getting up there in December, and I was really shocked at how many I had issued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
still
they're,
getting a lot of out-of-staters coming in.
yep.
And it seemed like a lot of the non-permits are out of staters, or it's kind
It's usually a local, unfortunately. The out-of-staters are great. They come in. Other than there's one or two here or there, but other than that, they've been great. They call, they ask the questions prior to even buying the property. Then once they buy the property, they'll come right in here, sit down, pull all the permits that's needed. I'll explain what they can do, what they can't do on their property, stuff of that sort. To me, the thorn in my side is a lot of the locals. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's the people that's lived here their whole life and, oh, I'm just gonna do this because I know this person or I know that one. Yeah.
Compared to other states, Maine is pretty relaxed when it comes to. permits.
Yes, and you know, with what I did prior to coming here, dealing with code enforcement and, you know, southern Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts and stuff, it's quite a bit different in Lincoln. A lot more laid back,
Yeah.
I would say, compared to what I've dealt with. And you know, in the conversations I've had with a lot of the contractors and everything, I've been on the other end of it, so I try not to slow them up at all. So I tell them, you know, give me days in advance. If you need me out there on a Thursday, do not call me Thursday morning. I will not come out. Call me beginning of the week. We'll set something up. That way I can get out there. That way they're still moving forward with what they need to do. You know, you got multiple contractors, plumbers, electricians, stuff, and carpenters that want to seal up walls. Well, everything's going to be inspected before you can seal it. So I try to get them to give me as much notice as possible, so that way not hold them up. Whereas I've been on the other end of that, and you know, code will hold you up on a big project. You know, they can hold you up for a week or two. So try not to be. I try to be a little bit open to going out and helping them out. Yeah, because I feel, you know, you have a good rapport with them. You know, they'll be open for communication with you, for future buildings or whatnot.
Report.
All right. This library here, do you have, is that, you want to do that tonight?
See, I told you, that was a quick issue.
Yeah, that's not. Maybe the quickest tonight.
So quick, I didn't even know I was done.
Let's have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ed.
George, if you guys do want to, after we're done, Lauren, if you think you have time, I'm ready to do any of my departments.
It's up to everyone else.
I've noticed you reshuffled the deck a little bit. It looks like you were reducing part-time wages and increasing full-time wages.
We did, and June of '24, after having done the job myself, we turned the children's area clerk into a children's librarian and put it as a full-time job. And there was 2 part-time at the time, and one of the part-time was me. And so then when it went to just 1 part-time person, it was so overwhelming that it was time to really allocate that into a full-time job. And that's been real successful because you can retain and actually have a children's area of the library well staffed and creatively done. So that's the change that has happened is that now we have a full-time person there. So we actually are down 1 part-time person in the library because of that, but full-time staff tends to do better than having a myriad of part-time that you have to shuffle and are less dependable than a full-time person.
Do you have any volunteers, students from high school?
We do have volunteers. We have a volunteer program that functions on Wednesday afternoons, and depending on who they are and what their capacities are, we put them on different jobs and things like that. But running a library or any organization on volunteerism can be spotty. And so we welcome everybody who wants to roll up their sleeves and get some things done. But it's not run on volunteer. It's more of a program than staffing. So you can probably see that what I did was I took things across the board and really looked at more of a 3% situation because of things costing a lot more than they had in the past. Last time I was new to the table, and so we decided to keep what we had and spend accordingly. Our summer months are much more expensive than the winter months just because of the area residents and people coming in with snowbirds. Really, our capacity jumps a lot now till next budget year. And so you'll see if we still had some things left in our budgets, it's because we're waiting on contractors to tell us what things cost. And it gets more expensive as the summer gets closer. The one item that I think jumped the most for us was professional development. The Maine Library Association has an annual conference. And so I'm hoping to send 2 librarians, both Kathy and Lorna, to be able to go to that conference. And before we had pricing in there that didn't even come close to what a conference cost. Last year, there was some, they applied, one of them applied for assistance, so she was able to get that. But this year, because she got it last year, she's not getting it again. And part of that was just the need. There's such a need for people to get granted any money that we put this in the budget, and whatever the council does not approve or whatever the committee doesn't do, I do have an ask for the Friends to be able to help with such professional development, because it's so important for us to have that money to support staff in their professionalism where there isn't too many librarians in the area. You have to go get that kind of commodity or that colleagueship. So that's in there. And then the consumables has jumped, as you can quite imagine. And we also put in some different line items, which is, so consumables are all of what it costs to run the library, but it's also now we have a few library services that are in there. which is library loan is now costing us money, but it's steeply subsidized by Maine State Library, which was very nice. We fought for this because it was going to cost us $4,420. Now 110 is the right price. So there's that. And then the equipment maintenance is what it is. We have 2 line items that weren't in there before. And we have equipment purchase. We've purchased scanners this past year, which was very nice, but the handheld one still escapes us. And we would love to be able to do that, which will help us with inventory because it's very hard for us to do inventory. All those books takes a long time. So a handheld scanner would help us in that process. And building maintenance, of course, is what we have a lot to do with. So there's this between the capital plan and between what we can afford regularly in our budget, maintaining our building. And so if you have any questions about that, I'd love to answer those. Safety compliance is already scripted because those things are necessary every year. And our lift, our lovely lift, has been a price for us. Programs, we have adult, teen, and children programs. We put adult programming back in our budget this past year, and it's been really successful. We would like to continue. Doesn't cost very much to do, but it does. It is part of the maintenance where children's programs cost the most.
Inventory of books,
Yeah.
is that, those numbers pretty good. I've noticed that in 23, 24, books and inventory, I think was down around 13,000. And to date, for this last year, I think you've got about another $8,000 in there. Happening.
Well, when I started, we started buying books under my understanding, it was 19.5, and last year we did not go up at all because I wanted to be able to see how that plays out and what that maintenance really looks like. And so this year we did go up just a little bit. We went up 3%, where books are going up 25%. So I thought a little bit more this time would be fine. Now, how we went from 13,000 to 19.5 was interesting to me. I think it's because the pendulum is swinging. Even though the digital world is really happening, people who come to the library are reading books and they want the books, which is really interesting to me. We have the tech world that we're working on. We work with the National Digital Equity Center, and we're hopefully doing more and more classes all the time. We're becoming facilitators to do that. So we're educating the public, but yet it's still the brick and mortar, book in hands type of library, and that costs a little bit.
Yeah, I was just, in 23, 24, you had a budget of 19,000 and you only spent 13,000, and then you used the same budget for last year, 19,500.
Right, we went really conservative. We did not buy regularly then like we do now. And I think it was just really the change of the guards. Melissa, then to me, we wanted to see
Super conservative.
so conservative that we really, patrons were wondering what was going on. And we were just simply saying, you know, we really had to see what this costs.
So
This is like,
what happens with when they order the books? And I know this because I was there for 3 or 4 months. You order the books, and then you might order 50 books 1 month. And then about 2 weeks later, you might get 5 of them, and they'll bill you for those 5. And then 3 weeks later, you might get 20 of them. And then a month and a half later, you might get the rest of the order. So when I went over there and took over, I had no idea what was still outstanding for book orders. We were trying to be super conservative. There was a lot of other things that needed attention before the books. Kathy was learning how to do the book orders. Then Lauren kind of
Yeah.
took over and,
And what we did was, is we started to look at things monthly, like how, especially the consumables and the books and inventory. How much can we spend each month, and really make sure that we do that? Because when books are on back order, and we get billed as they get picked, and then they went overseas, which was really super nice of our company to do. So then our orders were taking even longer. So this time we just bought, and we were hoping for the best, like how much is really coming in. And what happens is that when we're ordering regularly, books come in regularly, prolific readers are very happy. We don't have any lag in the service. We did have lag in the service. So that's really kind of how that works.
Over the last 2 years, we've been in quite a state of transition in leadership of the library. So you were seeing some of that effect also.
Kathy's still working on trying to finish out series as well, correct?
Yes.
Books that will have a series of 25 books, and there'll be book 5 and book 8 missing out of this. So she's researching, trying to find these books, because the series doesn't do anybody any good. They can't read the whole thing.
Right. And then we try to go through each of the genres and make sure that there's something for everybody to read that's new, because that's what people come in the library for, is what's new.
The library's been changing natural gas.
Mhm.
How does that work?
We're so happy with that. It's amazing in temperature, consistency, no banging and maintenance problems to worry about, especially the first year.
It was a good move.
Yes, it was nice. People have been happy with it. Yeah. Yep, and between the heat pumps and the natural gas, we're able to keep things consistently low on both accounts.
She does have a capital line item. Second to last page.
It shows in the computer lines.
Yeah, who is the computer up at the top?
That's me.
That, when you come up, Melissa, maybe that could be the first thing.
So what's the 20,000 for?
Well, I was hoping you'd ask me that list, actually, because what's happening is there's a lot of, in the future capital, we would like to put a few more things that are in library service opportunities, but in this one, it's the building. It's what we really need to be able to help us out with carpets and doors and back steps and, painting, and, it's just gonna, right now, we've been able to handle the things that come up, like safety kinds of things. A new fountain, plumbing that needs updating. We need wireless and an antenna so that our wireless works through the whole building and not just part of it, which is our alarm panel. I mean, there's so many things that we've had to catch up with, that's where that capital plan is coming into play.
Okay, so you've had some folks come in and give you some estimates on.
Yeah, we're waiting on quite a few, but in those estimates, we've had, everything seems to be right around $1,000 many times over, so it's really like we haven't seen the estimates for the doors yet. We haven't seen the estimates for window replacements. We have this big sunburst window that is in the older part of our library that is currently leaking, even though we've caulked every inch of those windows possible. So there's just things that between painting and carpets, it's just really important that we all get a little facelift at some point.
So basically, capital.
Yeah, we would like to
Bigger
move it into
projects.
library things, but right now it's
Bigger
keeping
projects,
the,
that front door is always going to be an issue until it gets replaced. And like she said, that big window, that is a large undertaking.
And Wade came through, so I did a walkthrough with Wade and said, you know, who do I call? How does this work? Because we need to get ready to support what needs to be done. And so I feel like we've been given a lot of advice as to how to go ahead and do that. And stay tuned because I'm still waiting on a lot of those particular estimates. But as far as, you know, having a list that has been prioritized, I feel pretty comfortable about, you know, being able to move through things.
And a big component of doing all the building maintenance and. So she could do it that.
And it costs less because right now plumbing is going to be our
Mm.
topmost curiosity coming to this next situation.
I wonder if any of them projects are something vocational school would come across to the students and do, if that would make sense to ask them. Just a thought.
Professional assessments aside, sure. Let's
Just
figure out
throwing it
what
out
these
there.
costs are.
At walking distance.
And then if there's
That'd be a
something that
training
can be done,
experience, like,
yeah.
Replacing the door, you think they're only going to cast it, we're going to replace the door.
Well, we have these beautiful
French doors.
French glass pane doors. We're missing the hardware. You know, so if we could like put them on that project, find the hardware, put these up for us, thank you very much. It's been agreed that we need the buffer for both the weather and safety reasons. I don't know why they're not there, but it's not something I could put up on my own. So it would be,
Just might be something worth asking.
yeah.
So the issue would
Oh,
be
insurance.
workers' comp insurance. Volunteers don't have workers' comp insurance. If we did get one of the schools to come over, we'd have to get a certificate of insurance from the school. Yeah. But yes, workers' comp insurance is the big issue when dealing with us because, yeah.
If they're coming from the school and volunteering, why did you want
That's-
to workers' comp? They
Somebody
weren't
got
paying them.
No, but somebody could get hurt working on our property.
Well, they use the Region 3 for putting their playground equipment together.
I would have to check on things like that. We did have an employee over there supervising the playgrounds.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of the people putting in them, there was a few volunteers, most of them were paid employees, mostly rec employees that we were using at those playgrounds. Even the person that was running that was being paid by the town as an employee.
Not a lot of volunteers on that playground.
On which
I
one?
was one of them.
Okay, so you probably should have been cleared by us before. I did not know we had that many volunteers over there. Yeah, so that becomes a liability issue if you were injured while you were over there. I think having them fill out the volunteer forms with the town kind of takes care of some of that.
There is a reasonably inexpensive insurance we can buy for
For
volunteers.
volunteers, and we do have that, but they also need to sign up.
But we have to have their
With the form.
name in before they do it.
Yes, there's a volunteer form that the town has.
Mhm.
And we do have insurance for volunteers included on our policy, but we need to know that they're there.
If a child gets hurt on the playground, do we have insurance for that?
We have liability, yes.
Yeah, permission from the parents would be nice, you know, if it's a student, you know, things like that. I mean, I'm sure
It
we
might
would.
start an ongoing thing for projects down the road if it is
Yeah, it's always nice to have a relationship with the school. When the fifth graders came out to take tours, we really, they were like, wow, this is a fun place. Sure, come on in.
So you have $4,300 or $4,700 on maintenance in buildings, and then the library building, the Capitol, is still basically maintenance. You just put it somewhere else. bigger jobs, things
yeah.
that the bids come in at.
Yeah,
But you've got a list, and it's in
Yep.
priorities.
Yep.
So that if you had someone that came in and said, hey, I'll paint for you, and I'll do a volunteer, you know that you can put them to work, and you have an idea what the paint will cost. But isn't paint one of your
I
things?
do. I have one of the painting, estimate. Somebody's coming in, 2 people are coming in with estimates for me about what that would cost, because we need to do it in sections. So that way we can handle, taking books apart, off shelves and getting section by section done, which means it's, yeah, we have to know what's.
If you get a bid from 2 women, a mother and a daughter team, they're great.
I
painters.
haven't had them, no, so if you'd
I
like to
had to paint
recommend.
all my
please.
ceilings, and I've been disappointed with my ceilings since my house has been built. They did a fabulous job and paint by the hour. They don't do it. I mean, they can give you.
They have to have the insurance. They do have to have
Do
insurance
they
or,
have- Oh,
I get the name from Collins.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm happy to be,
Yeah.
that's one of the best people I've hired since I've been here doing things.
could we try emailing me?
Yeah, and you can ask them about the insurance and maybe.
Sure,
they
I'll
can
do the
get some-
legwork, yeah.
But they do a lot of work around the area, so I would, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I've also had captains come tell me they're insured, but to have them that produce that
they
document.
have to, they do have to produce it to me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there is some other daughter team that, as far as I'm concerned, paint your ceilings, wonderful.
Yeah.
At very reasonable cost, even at half of what the guy that, will give you the formal bid and everything else, even half, done deal.
Right, and that, and to welcome people into the library, to do this process, it's hard when people want the jobs, so they get frustrated when you bring them in and have them bid on a job and then you don't give it to them, but at least they, have come in, we've had a conversation, we've done the best we can with the parameters that we have, which means, can you do this in sections?
It showed up when they said, they called when something came up.
Yeah,
was
if you could
wrong.
email me
I mean,
them, then I would vet them for
Very
sure.
happy with them.
So now I have 3, is that 2?
I just don't know if they're really good. I expect that they have big ability, but
Well,
I don't know.
if we do the bid sheet right, I mean, they can come in and look at the space.
They can
and-
come in here and say how long it takes, can people.
Yeah, and how much they're gonna charge, so.
Yeah, and when they come into the library, it's always like, wow, one coat of this particular color and one coat of that color, this is gonna, I mean, it's a very unique situation to look at.
And I bought the paint myself, so there's no upside. They're totally happy with that. They'll even pick it up on the way in.
Yes, please.
That's my 18.
Thank you.
Anything else, Leonard? All right, so I guess question for everyone is, do we want to end it there, or do we want to move on to any of the listeners?
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
May as well do some on Melissa, we're all here. You'll know.
Rick, I think, wanted me to start with computer, so my capital line item.
Yes.
So I've been trying to get this done for years, George, get an actual audit of all of our computers and what they're running and everything, and I finally got it done. So the total number that I had always estimated, around 45 computers, is actually exactly correct. So I wasn't off on that.
Are you looking at replacing them all over the next?
Not all of them. It would be nice to be able to do 6 per year. During this inventory of all of these computers, we do have, I want to say 3 computers that are over 10 years old, with Windows 11 being what we have to switch to. Those 3 are a priority right now to replace them because they are not going to accept Windows 11, and I have to have them done by October 1st. Is that the date? Sometime in October.
15, 17.
Yeah. And actually 2 of them are out at the clerk's counter. So I still have a little bit of money left in this year's budget. So the plan this year is to replace the 3 oldest computers right now. So MotoBrain is getting those. What doesn't have to get replaced and can be upgraded with more RAM or whatever, that's going to be done as well. And as you know, even though the specs for Windows 11 say you can load it on certain computers,
Depends
sometimes,
on hardware.
yeah,
I mean,
it just won't accept it.
the place to put it, but, so, I mean, the way I, that I, but by warranty, everything covered.
Yeah.
Accidentally.
And I have priced those out.
Then that way, every 5 years you're replacing them, that way
Yeah.
the year before, you don't have money wait, the year that they're due, and then you're just replacing everything, you can. May not work well for the town to do it that way, but, I mean, basically, as long as, are you buying from where are they building them, or are they?
They're building the new ones, but the old ones that we have, like my computer is, I want to say it's 12 years old, but they've upgraded it so much, it shows up on their inventory as like being 6 years old. So they're just taking components out and replacing them with something upgraded. And I don't want to replace my computer. But once I get used to it, I want to keep my,
So I guess the question is, and maybe it's all under their maintenance plan, but just that if you're.
It is covered under their maintenance plan if they're, yeah.
Got a 10-year-old computer.
Yeah.
And hard drive guys, they're replacing it for free, or are they charging you?
They're charging me for the hard drive, but they're not charging me for the labor.
So all
Same with-
computers are owned by MotoBrain.
No, they're owned by us. We're buying them. They're making them for us.
So
They're not charging us.
sole source to us. We don't, well,
No, we have looked at, like George has said, we have looked at Dell's. I've tried to build a computer on the Dell site to the specs that they're building them to it for us, and they're about the same cost. But MotoBrain is taking care of all the maintenance. If I call them at 8:30 in the morning, they're over here by 9, and usually they have a part, like if the power supply goes out, and it's one of our, computers that we use every single day, they have that back to us within an hour. Whereas Dell, we would have to wait, and if we did have MotoBrain fix it for us, they're gonna charge us.
And I guess along with how many laptops do you have?
We have 5 laptops at the police station. We have 1 laptop in here to run this system. And I have a laptop that we can use for training and things like that.
You don't really.
No. The laptops for the police station, they just purchased, it's for the cruisers. But we don't use laptops as a everyday computer.
the MotoBrain build those for you too?
The laptops, no. The laptops, I don't know if they have the capability to build a laptop.
I'd be impressed.
Yeah. But no, we priced, the police ones were priced out from MotoBrain and then a couple other places, and I don't think we actually bought them through MotoBrain, did we?
I don't think so.
No.
You have 11,000, is that? Over 9 computers?
Yeah. Because you never know what's going to happen during the year. My computer might be working great today and I come in tomorrow and the whole thing is just, so we plan on replacing at least 6 every year is the plan going forward. And maintaining the rest of them.
Dual monitors, everybody.
There's, most of us in here do have dual monitors that want them. Some people don't want them.
I don't.
I don't know what I ever was thinking when I said I didn't want one, because I can't do it without it now. obviously at the counter, they can't have them. Just not enough space. Yeah. If any other department, I think the police all are working on getting dual monitors over there.
So you're in the process of buying more under the original part, the budget line?
Yes, yeah.
You spent about 40%.
Once they've done that inventory, we have, the ones that will not upgrade to Windows 11 are gonna be the first ones to be replaced right now
So you're
with
trying
the remaining of this year's money.
to- Okay.
We've got to get them done, especially the counter computers.
Okay, so those are already bought and paid for.
They're not bought and paid for yet.
I know, but as far as budget's concerned.
Correct, in this year's budget,
Right.
and then,
So the next year budget is what we're looking at.
yeah,
3 will be replaced and we'll move it forward.
having that inventory with the years of the computers and everything, and, you know, what everything's running is the best thing.
I mean, I would just make sure that, I mean, budget out, I mean, 5 to 6 years is kind of what you want to see.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of older ones.
5, pushing at 6, you could probably get to where. You guys aren't doing anything.
Which is kind of, I went through and was looking at the years as I did this, deciding where we needed to put the money each year. So hopefully I can follow this plan and Rick gets a new computer this coming year, even though he doesn't want one.
I fought it pretty hard.
But he's got to have it.
And if you don't know the spec, then like, I mean,
Yeah.
That's something, so.
And that is my only capital line. Do you want to do a couple small ones like utilities and
Or,
one of the very few budgets, I thought it was going to go down, but then I started looking at the PUC rates for the hydrants, which we have no control over.
Hydrants?
Yeah. The hydrant fees we have to pay to the water district. The Public Utilities Commission sets those rates,
Mm-hmm.
so.
a little bit of electricity, that could be.
I did, I believe, a 3% increase, no, a 5% increase for electricity. And actually, I took our actual cost for this year and then did a 5% increase. And it's only gone up $126 using that formula. The phone has gone up quite a bit.
I'm gonna say I'm guessing these are all the different buildings.
Yes, yes.
I can tell you one thing that I know that when SharePoint consolidated that once Fidium gets 40% buy-in and everything, we're ripping copper, universal copper out.
Oh,
We don't want copper lines.
we have to have copper lines for the,
For
the alarm panels.
Yeah, they're saying they're gonna keep them for alarms, but the price goes from like $29 to about $100 a month. So just this, someone.
so maybe we need to start looking at different things for all the other phone lines except for the copper, because,
So, I know Consolidated will do basically if you have fiber here, then they'll do a fiber, typically fiber phone line. Then you can still do copper for alarms, elevators.
yeah, because, I mean, we have copper for everything really coming into the two panels here and at the fire station, but
Because by the end of the year, it's going to like $60 to $70 a line. So, and again, I don't know the year exactly, I'll get the map real quick, but. I'm guessing. That's what. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Just something that you may want to have you're in the budget process, have a talk with Fairpoint Consolidated and get a kind of quote and see what you can do for, because if you go to the new fiber lines, it's
Yeah.
$20 a line,
How much?
$20 a line.
Except for my 5 that I have to have copper. Fax machines don't have to have copper, correct?
No, they can do it.
Yeah. I've always just been told that the alarm panels have to have the copper.
Yeah, they're supposed to. It's a consulting and stuff.
Well,
But salespeople tell me, you know, still keep my copper for something more. The technicians tell me. The
They're getting rid of
it's
them.
going in, you're not gonna have it, and then you gotta have generators,
mhm.
everything for your building. We'll give you better backups. Things don't, set the generators.
Police and fire have to have some copper lines to go to the county dispatch, so that changes.
The 911 line and the 2221 line.
Yeah, I think the companies are changing faster. than the government's changing faster.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, just something you may want to, like, again, have a call with, because you don't want to come October and then. it's
Well,
triple.
what I would love to get is long distance in the state, not having to pay for each call as well. That's a lot of our, because these phone lines, they'll call our non-emergency, which patches them down to Bangor. That's a long distance call for us.
Actually, in here, I'm not seeing it, but.
We're consolidated.
A year, like, you know, if you want this, you know, I mean, I can tell you roughly what I do, for 65 a month, that's all. I mean,
How many phone lines do you have?
right now, it's like 31.
That's about what we have.
And
And that's through consolidated or? Okay.
GNY, yeah.
JYBA.
So I was just,
I will be calling them.
I was just thinking, they can sell you bundles for a certain price. And especially if you have to get it out, so.
Yeah.
If it works out, like, you might not be paying that much. Like,
Yeah.
Less, like, paying, that's nice, like, paying more than that.
Some phone lines are a lot more than others, but I do find, if I have a voicemail, a lot of people carry their phones from one state to here when they move here. And they could be 5 minutes down the road, but I have to call them on their 601 area code. So
Yeah.
I'm paying a long distance call to call them back. And that's a lot of people that do that. Hidden Kill went down. The library. The only one on number 2 right now is Public Safety Building.
And as we change the boiler there, which is scheduled in this year, because the boiler they have, it limped its way through the winter. That's all it did, was limp its way through the winter.
Mhm.
So it's got to go, and when we change it, we'll convert there.
We will
Natural
hopefully
gas.
convert to natural gas. That is the plan.
Well, it runs right by them.
Yeah.
I think Les has put in his bids, he has asked for a natural gas boiler.
And we could see his drop. Probably not to what the library dropped to, but I would say probably half.
How much did we save on the library?
Let me look at last year's budget and I can tell you. 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I budgeted for the library, we budgeted $7,000 for number 2 fuel. Number 2 fuel was up a little bit higher than it is right now. She's using about the same number of units over there, but we're using natural gas. And so she's down about $4,000 in usage.
And all the money saved on maintenance.
Yes, yes.
So based on those, what would be your return of investment on the board, cost of it, from the board?
At the library,
Yeah.
I'd say in about 6 years, it'll pay for itself by about $5,000. Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
Again, you're talking one maintenance too,
Right.
so. That's, I think, 5 or 6 years.
I was quite happy with, because last year we had just got it in. So when we had done the budget, we still had number 2 fuel budgeted for it. And I do a tracking sheet every year on fuel usage. She's using the same number of units, you know, but the cost,
I think that's a good number to hang on to, because people ask, you know, when we put these new units in.
how long is it gonna take to pay for itself?
Exactly. Yeah, so having that as an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
And hers was an old boiler, but it hadn't cracked like the the fire station. Yet, it had not cracked yet. And like I said, my water sewer usage went up, not the cost went up because of those hydrant fees. Last year, they changed the hydrant fee just as we were doing the budget. So I did not have good hydrant fees in there.
Mhm.
Now we do, we have actual costs. And it could go up again. They don't normally give a lot of notice before they increase that.
Anything else on utilities?
Um, you want to do social services next? It's a small
Yeah, we
one.
have the social services, what's going on, anything.
And there's a reason for the increase on the social services line of social services, which is the food cupboard and the Humane Society contract. The food cupboard has come in and asked for a $5,000 donation. They asked me a couple months ago for this year to be 5,000, and the budget had already been passed. So they did ask that I put it forward this year. And then we don't have the actual Humane Society contract amount. In about a month, they will probably give that to me. So whatever they give to me will be an actual number. It will be changed before it goes to the final vote for the council.
Is that then, second number, then getting that, that's just because that's how their budget, everything falls, or?
Yeah, they'll usually get me by the end of, or by the middle of next month, I will have a contract.
So they gave it to you before.
They give it to me before the council gets to vote on this, yes. And that's what they did last year.
And again, I think that's because we have to have a contract with some,
Correct.
one of the societies.
Correct. And they base it on last year's number of animals brought in. They charge a certain amount for a cat and a certain amount for a dog. And if they were attributed to Lincoln, you know, a stray or whatever, that's what they base that contract on.
And how much more was the food covered extra for?
2,500. I'm pretty sure that's what they had last year.
There are about a dozen applicants for various, who see themselves as social service entities for funding from the town. It includes the medical helicopter, it includes the Salvation Army, Penquist. There are about a dozen of them, and many of them are not particularly shy to ask. We have not been funding them, but again, I will put those in front of the council when it's time to finalize the budget.
I see all the other numbers in the steady.
Yeah, we, that is household supplies, that is toiletries, that is cleaning products, things like that. And that is, the state tells us what our limit is for each person. Normally, you might see the person once, and then GA is meant to be a program of last resort, and it is not meant to live on. But here's the big but. If somebody is applying for Social Security disability, as long as they have an active claim and they can show us every quarter that they still have an active claim, they can continue to come in every month and ask for help. Yeah, so we currently have one person that we see every month. They're not asking for much every month, mostly personal supplies, electric, and it's one person, so the electric amount for one person isn't super high. If I knock on wood, this year, we haven't done a lot of rent payments for people. But you never know what it's, what the next year's gonna bring.
Only people for Social Security disability, Social Security can't.
No, Social Security disability.
So if someone's applying for Social Security,
No.
then nothing?
No, that's not a get out of jail free card. The Social Security disability application process is what we're mandated to help them.
And nobody else can get general assistance for that?
No, other people can,
Can.
but it's meant to be a one-time thing, and we put restrictions on it. Next time you need to apply for, if they got laid off from their job, they have to apply for unemployment benefits. If they quit their job, we can actually disqualify them for 120 days after they quit a job. If they've just moved here from somewhere else, whatever, and lost their job, or we put things on them. If they have children, we require them to apply for TANF. We require people who are able-bodied to search for 3 jobs per week, and they have to prove to us that they've searched for the 3 jobs per week. Also, if they're able-bodied, we can have them do work fair for the town. And Dennis is always asking us for people to be checking. He uses them to check transfer station stickers at the transfer station, or he uses them to clean roadside. And if they don't do as many hours of work there as they're supposed to, they won't get the general assistance the next month. But these are able-bodied people, not the Social Security people.
Right.
We can't do anything with them.
There are currently half a dozen or a few more proposals before the legislature regarding general assistance. They range all the way from the state takes the whole thing over and pays it all, we're out of it, to the state reduces what we get down to 25% reimbursement. There are also multiple others. Larger population communities get a bigger percentage as a reimbursement. than the smaller ones. We are in that, in the smaller group. And so there's an attempt to make it even to everybody. That has been tried before. We'll see what happens. There are also, there's one for greater demonstration of an attempt to get a job. So it's all over the place. And we don't know when this is going to end, but that will be voted very likely by mid-June, one way or another.
We get 70% back on what we spend right now.
And there's one in there that it's 50/50, 50% municipal, 50% state. So
We were at that for a while,
we were for a while.
and then they went back to the 70.
Yeah, well, they were giving Bangor, Lewis, and Portland 90%, and we were all getting 50%. That didn't seem particularly fair. So then it got changed to 70 across the board, and I think we're currently at 70. Aren't we?
We're at 70.
Across the board.
Mhm.
So we'll see what happens.
I would love them to take it.
All of the miles.
I was wondering if you were gonna address the educational aspect that's in your introductory
The what?
cover, the education, the main state funding for education that's going on down in Augusta. You mentioned that, I thought you might talk a little bit.
I didn't mention that. That's Rick's.
The law of the state of Maine for more than a decade has been that the essential services, K through 12, are paid 55% by the state. They've only gotten to that 2 years ago, and with the state's budget looking as it does, I highly doubt they'll continue with 55%. So we'll have to see. When they creeped up to 55%, they added like 1% a year, finally got there, and I know there's a proposal now to reduce the 55% to 45%. So
Thought you were gonna talk about the bus stop between,
I do not have enough information to talk about that intelligently.
that could be a bottom line, right?
Oh, could be huge. It could be so big, and we know so little about it, that we are doing with this budget just exactly what we're doing with the economic development. And it's the same thing that all economic development people are advocating, and we're doing the exact same thing as Tony Jessen, our investment counselor, is telling us. Just go forward like you always did and hope. Well, that's what this budget is all built on. Just go forward as if it is another year and hope.
If something happens after you close the budget for this year, what will happen? If some of that funding won't trickle in until they're over.
Right, we won't really know about all of it, particularly the grants and that sort of stuff, until they actually happen. There are some grants that have already been taken away that had been awarded. So it's all over the place. But the big one that will affect us will be education, because if the schools lose really big money, they're gonna turn back to us. Right. But I don't know any way to predict that. And whatever they tell us on Tuesday could easily be different on Wednesday.
All right, do we want to do any more, or do we want to call it there?
That service might take you 2 minutes.
Yes. If everyone wants to.
There's 3 line items, and they're all contracts.
They all are what they are.
Yes.
And the good news on this is 2 of these loans will be paid off after next year's budget. The Public Works garage will be paid in full, and the fire department's SCBA loan, which you might come back and want more for that one, but
Yes.
These are all bond payments. So.
Correct. bond or loan. That's why I said it'll be a quick and easy one here, because these are all commitments the town has previously made.
How many years is the construction bond?
For the road construction, it was a 15 and we're on the 5th year. This will be the 5th year.
So 10 more years.
Yeah, 10 more years after this budget we're working on.
Those.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at the page just before these, it's got, those on there and what's left for value on each of those as of the end of this year.
Mhm.
We have to keep that because we're only allowed to, borrow, to the state's limit, 15% of our valuation. And currently we are at 0.44% borrowed. And that's it for debt service.
Right? You guys talk about it.
So to recap, I only have 2 notes to pass on. One was to increase the amount in the reevaluation.
Mhm.
And the second one was to get quotes on from,
Yes.
and it was, I mean, the other chit chat, I'm not gonna give a transcript. Those are the only 2 recommendations.
Where are we on Main Street? The front of rooms up there is DOT still paying for most of that? I don't have a small percent.
Proportion the DOT originally paid, agreed to pay, they've paid. We've paid. There are a couple of small things yet to be done by the contractor as makeup or completion. We have a couple of wet spots that don't drain.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's done.
But the town didn't get any debt out of that.
I can't hear.
It's going around that the town inherited most of that debt because some of it was done. So it's just-
No, it's not.
Okay.
We're adjourning, George?
You're adjourned. Thank you.
Keeping the name tag, but we put the location.
Oh, she usually.